Hi everyone, welcome to the final season of Bats in Churches Live. We've got a treat for you today. We're here with the Bats in Churches engagement officers, Honor Gay, Rose Riddell and Diana Spencer, and they're going to be talking to you today about the engagement work that we've been doing. Firstly, a bit about Bats in Churches. We are a 5-year partnership between Church of England, Bat Conservation Trust, Historic England, Natural England and the Churches Conservation Trust, and we're funded by the National Lottery Heritage Fund. We began our delivery phase in 2018 with the goal of helping more than 100 ancient churches around Britain with their bat populations. As we've approached the end of the project, this is the time where we take stock and reflect on our achievements, and that's something that Diana, Rose and Honor are going to do with you today. Honor is going to talk you through some of the work we've done engaging with specific church communities. Then Rose is going to talk about some of the wider community work we've done, particularly engaging with schools. And then Diana's going to give us a broader view of the engagement work we've done with more communities, including online. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Honor, who's going to start by talking through some of the engagement work we've done with specific churches. So I'm just going to share my screen with you, and Honor, when you're ready, over to you.
Super. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much. I've turned my camera off because my isn't great. I am going to romp a variety of slides talking about what we've done with our churches. And Kathy, I'm sure to if you have to do these, in which case I will say next slide. But I want to talk about 3 areas: working with the wonderful heritage in churches, the power of county bat groups, and just talk you through a few guidebooks that the project has enabled. So, next slide, please, Kathy. So, England's 16,500 parish churches, the most incredible array of. I always liken them to the biggest National Museum collection that is absolutely free and accessible to everyone. And here you see a rare wall painting from the Church of St. Pega at Peakirk, which is 2 women gossiping and exchanging slander with the devil looking over their shoulders. Next slide, please. Oh, we seem to be a bit stuck here. Oh, brilliant. Thank you, Kathy. And here you see another example of amazing church heritage, which is the carved wooden cadaver in John the Baptist Keystone, where the project put a protective case around it. And I'm going to talk about our work with the parish of St. Nicholas, Arundel, and one of the most remarkable items in their care. Next slide, please.
I think Honor's.
So this is the Arundel Choir Book. This is the Arundel Choir Book. It is one of only 3 choir books dating from the reign of Henry VIII, and it was made for the parish church of Arundel and is there of the palace. Arundel is one of the churches in the Bats in Churches project, and the church community had no link or no real engagement with the choir book. So we organised a visit to Lambeth Palace for them.
I'm afraid Honor's really struggling with her connection, but I know that what she wanted to tell you was that this particular choir book, which relates to the Church of St. Nicholas in Arundel, one of our project churches, Through the project, Honor managed to arrange a visit for the church community to go to Lambeth Palace Library and actually see the choir book up close and personal. By all accounts, it was an absolutely wonderful day, and the church community were incredibly moved to be reunited with such a valuable and fantastic piece of their heritage. It is on display in Lambeth Palace Library, and you are able to go and see it for yourself, which we highly recommend because it's an absolutely stunning example of a choir book. And I believe, and Honor, if she comes back on, will confirm this, it's one of only 2 still in existence.
Kathy, I'm back, and that was absolutely wonderful. I don't need to at all.
Okay, Honor, it sounds like we've lost you again there, but here you can
No,
see.
I'm here.
Oh, you're here.
Kathy, I'm here. Can you hear me? I'm here.
Yeah.
Could I have the next slide?
Absolutely.
Super. This is so what follows, Kathy, if you just scroll through these slides, these are some details from the choir book showing the incredible quality of it.
And there you are, Honor, working with the church community in St. Nicholas. I believe they're showing you some of the history of the church itself.
Indeed, they are. Indeed, they are. Go on, please. Next slide, please. So this is Lambeth Palace Library, the new Lambeth Palace, where the church community at St. Nicholas.
Okay, we're still struggling with your connection there, Honor. This slide, I think, is Lambeth Palace Library, the new Lambeth Palace Library, where the choir book is on display. But I know something that you really wanted to talk about in this session, as your slide notes, is the power of back groups. So there are over 80 back groups in the UK, right from the Isle of Man to the Channel Islands. And these are run by Bat Conservation Trust, but they're made up of volunteers who have a huge amount of expertise, skills, experience, and enthusiasm. So back group members are often very willing and able to help churches, giving them advice with their resident bats, helping them survey their resident bats, either for the National Bat Monitoring Programme or for local monitoring, so that records can be kept of local bat roosts that are important to the area. They're also a great source of help with events and activities, and we've had a huge amount of involvement with some of our bat groups, organising things like bat walks at churches, bat themed events, and it's really fantastic to have experts on hand who can engage with the community, can give a really detailed local knowledge of bats in the area. So if you're a church community and you're not in contact with your local bat group, you can go to bats.org.uk/support-bats/bat-groups. And there you can search for your local bat group. And we really highly recommend that you make contact with your local bat group because, as said, they can be a really fantastic source of support for local churches. Here's some pictures of some fantastic events that have been run. I think these are in Arundel again. We've got some batty cupcakes up there and some information on display. There we've got some children using bat detectors so that they can help identify and learn more about the bats using their local church. Obviously, bat walks generally take place evening and at night, so it's quite a magical experience for everybody. And some more pictures here. I love the picture here of the Serotine bat in hand. That is Mr. Grumpy, who is an educational bat. And he made a guest appearance at one of Honor's churches, along with those yummy looking bat cookies, at a bat themed event. Now, educational bats are bats that have been rescued by bat carers that can't be re-released back into the wild. Maybe they've damaged their wing or some other reason why they can't actually go and carry on living their natural batty lives. So instead, they have a new career which is they are used by bat carers to really engage with the community. People can get up close and personal with a bat. And as you can see, as grumpy as Mr. Grumpy looks, he's also completely adorable. So educational bats are fantastic, you know, for children and adults alike, for them to really fall in love with bats. And also this really helps with any kind of myths around bats, you know, getting up close and personal with a bat removes the fear element of, oh, you know, aren't bats bad for my health? What if they fly into my hair? Once you actually see the animal up close and in person, a lot of those fears dissipate. You'll see here also that the bat helper is holding Mr. Grumpy with a gloved hand. This is recommended practice for handling bats in the UK. There is very little health risk from bats to people, but we always advise, the Bat Conservation Trust always advise, if you're handling a bat, wear a glove. And here we've got an absolutely fantastic testimony from one of Honour's churches. The bat event was a great success. We had 130 people come along with many families. We had a Q&A, a live bat, that was Mr. Grumpy. And then on cue at 9 o'clock, the bats emerged and we had about 20 flying around in the church for quite a long time. People seemed to be thrilled and several nice comments went onto Facebook. A great evening and no more talk of getting rid of the bats. So this is from Honour's Project Church of St Pegars in Peakirk. The wall paintings that Honour showed you earlier are some of the heritage of this church. It's got these wonderful wall paintings which have been lovingly restored. Obviously, part of the project, part of the overall Bats and Churches project, is helping churches protect their valuable heritage. So part of our work with St Pegars, which you can read about on our website, was helping the community make sure that those precious wall paintings were protected. But also Honour worked with the church community to produce this fantastic guidebook, which tells visitors more about the church. And as you can see, there's a whole page on the bats of St Pegars, so that when visitors come to the church, they can learn more about the bats and appreciate more what they really bring to the community and the local area. So that's the end of Honour's presentation. I'm very sorry that she wasn't able to be with us to see it through. I know she is struggling with her signal at the minute. I will stop sharing my screen. There we go. And hand you over to Diana, who is now hand you over to Rose, sorry, who is now going to talk more about our work with schools and other community engagement. So over to you, Rose.
Thanks, Kathy. Hello, everybody. Schools, fantastic way to get messages out into communities. Children will talk about the things they've learnt at school or during school hours or on trips, and they'll take it back to their friends and to their families. So that was one of the reasons why we wanted to do a schools programme. I don't know if any of you know what they might be playing here. You can, if you know the answer, put it in the chat. So we started the schools programme in September 2019. We ran a pilot workshop, a pilot programme to school in Gloucestershire, and received some really good feedback from them. So we then decided to roll it out. Of course, March 2020, COVID struck, and we had to stop. So in between lockdowns, we've managed to deliver the programme to 19 schools in all, totaling 74 sessions. 800 children have been engaged and 88 adults. It's good for churches. They like to make links with their local schools. Many rural churches already have links with their local schools. And if they don't, doing something like this is a really good way to cement that. It's not just delivered in churches, it can also be delivered in classrooms, where we've just modified slightly to account for not being in the actual church. It's about 2 hours long, and it's aimed really at years 5 and 6, but we have actually delivered it to all age groups from reception upwards at a primary level. Children have a sense of awe, and one of the things that we wanted to do with the programme was to tap into that with regard to both bats and churches. They're both interesting, they're both mysterious. In this picture here, the children were absolutely convinced they'd seen a bat up in the rafters. I actually think it was just a pile of cobwebs. But the feedback from the teacher was they loved the hunt for evidence in the church and their absolute conviction that they saw bats. It gave them a sense of it being real rather than simply a learning activity. This was in Hope Bowdler Church in Shropshire. So these are the main learning outcomes from it. It's a mixture of activities to engage head, hand and heart. So it's observation, group discussion, critical thinking, games and role play. It's important to have links to the national curriculum. So we made sure that the programme did have those. It provides far more value to the teachers and they can do extension activities back in the classroom. And it's easy to justify if they have to pay for transport, it's easy to justify the cost of that. So we asked the teachers not to tell the children what they're going to be learning about. And we start off with a riddle. So the riddle, we asked them to guess what they think the riddle is about. We've had some quite interesting answers. Owls, ducks, foxes, dinosaurs. And then of course we can use the riddle to talk about the various special adaptations of bats. Obviously I make lots of noise but I can't be heard is echolocation. I come out at night when I leave my home, nocturnal. My hands are webbed with skin and bone. So we explain that bats fly with their hands. And we talk about bats in the UK. They're very cute. Even people who don't like bats quite like this little brown long-eared poking out of a log. We explain that all UK bats eat insects, and we have various pictures of UK bats to show them, as well as a couple of dead bats. And of course, we explain that some bats have got very, very funny noses. We also talk about fruit bats, bats in other parts of the world, which are also very, very cute. And we talk about the biggest bat. This is one from the fruit bat from the Philippines. I think it's the golden crown fruit bat, and it's absolutely massive. The children are often very amazed at how big this bat is. And of course, you can't show the biggest bat in the world without also showing the littlest. So this is Kitty's hognose bat. And I think by showing them these pictures of different bats, weird and wonderful hairstyles, this is Chapin's free-tailed bat. And we talk about why bats are important to the ecosystem, both eating insects here in this country, and of course fruit bats in other parts of the world are really important for pollination and seed germination as well. This is my favourite. I think this one's got really kind eyes. This is a tube-nosed bat. And of course, you can't really do bats in other parts of the world without talking about vampire bats in South America as well. And we also throw in this one. This is actually a hoax bat. It is quite believable after you've seen all the other bats' very strange faces and noses, but this is actually an internet hoax. So again, that has opened up opportunities for teachers to talk about, you know, sorters and being careful on the internet and with what you're looking at and reading and so on. So the programme is modular. It's got various aspects to it. The bottom left-hand picture down here, they're doing bat life cycle. So if you have time, then you can include that in, but you don't have to if the school needs to have a shorter workshop. So those have been downloaded from the Bat Conservation Trust website. They're really engaging pictures, talking about what bats do at different times of the year and seasons. And then on the right-hand side, they're looking at this wonderful fossil. This is 55 million years old. It's quite a famous picture. And they can compare their skeletons to this. They can see it's a bat, and they can see the similarities in the bone structure. This is a mammalian skeleton. And then if we're in a church, we will look for evidence of bats. Obviously, we'll be looking at for bat poo, bat urine, perhaps some moth wings. And they find that really exciting. They really enjoy that. We have had the occasional bat flying around while the children were there as well. And being picked up on a bat detector, we also show them how that works. And when we're in the church, we also do a spotter sheet. So they're not just learning about bats, they're also learning about churches and the special items in the church, things like ledger stones and altars and fonts, things that you don't get in any other building. And it also helps us talk about why churches are so special and why they deserve our protection and care as well. So we've had some really good feedback from the programme. So this is from one of the first schools that we did. You can see the links between the national curriculum that the teachers really value, and also the fact that it's a local issue. It's their local church. It's easy to get to, usually, so that's really valued as well. Again, it's more teacher feedback. It shows that the children go home, they talk about the bats in the church to their parents, so getting the message out there. And it's also really good, it shows that the church can be used as outside classroom, learning outside the classroom. And the children really get a lot out of it as well. They didn't know that bats hibernated in their church, for example. They didn't know that bats are actually really loud, but their echolocation is higher than we can hear. And some of them also change their mind on whether they like bats too, going from not liking bats to liking bats. So we give each school that we work with, we give them a copy of our Little Church Bat book that Diana's going to be talking about next. This is some children here at the Rissington School reading it in the library. So they all get a copy of the book for the library. And we also give them links to the challenge badge, which again, Diana's going to be talking about, which has got the challenge badge sort of came out of the schools project. It's up on our website. Anybody can use it. It's aimed at uniformed groups, so brownies and cubs, but also homeschoolers, Sunday schools, and schools themselves can take on some of the activities from the badge. So that's it. That's a very quick, brief run through our schools programme, and I'm now going to stop sharing and hand back to Diana.
Thank you so much for that, Rose. That was fantastic. I always love that picture of the bat skeleton, and the first time I showed it to my children, we were all struck by how similar bat and human skeletons were, and then we all pretended to be bats with our skeletons. So I always think it's an absolute winner. And I love the different varieties of bats as well, and the hoax bat. You're quite right. After having looked at that little collection, you could be forgiven for believing that was an actual bat. We've been really lucky at the Bats in Churches project to have Rose put together, with Diana's help, this amazing schools programme and deliver it to all of her project churches. So it's been a really fantastic resource for them. All the information around the schools, workshops, activities for children, etc. is on our website at batsinchurches.org.uk. So if you fancy giving it a go with your local school, all the information you need is up there. So yes, now we're going to hear from Diana, who's going to take the story a step further and talk about some of our wider engagement. And she's also going to touch on how the project was affected by COVID. It seems a long time ago now, but how that affected the project and what we did to make sure that we were still connecting and engaging with the communities that we work with. So Diana, over to you.
Lovely. Thank you, Kathy. I'll try and do the technical bit of making sure my screen shares as well. Go. Has that worked? All good. Yeah, so I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the wider engagement of the Bats in Churches project. You've heard how we've worked with some of the churches and church communities and with bat groups talking about bats. But obviously there's a whole range of people outside of that fairly small section who we're working with directly, other churches, other communities, other wildlife groups, just the general public, who would be really interested to know some of the work we've done and what the project is all about. So it's all been about sharing the project. And right from the beginning, we've started off doing a lot of really outgoing in-person events. We've been to lots and lots of church fairs, church festivals. We started off, that bottom left-hand corner there was a talk we did at Bird Fair, which is a massive event which has around sort of 100,000 people back in the day, and we went and delivered a talk to them about the project. And it was quite nice. One of our very last events for the project is this year's Global Bird Fair as well, which was a nice way to bring the project to a close. We've also taken our stand out to conferences. This is Rose, who hates this photograph and will be very cross with me for having it on this presentation. But this is Rose at one of the back conferences. And we've also delivered a lot of talks to, for example, groups of architects, to diocesan meetings as well, to try and get the word about the project out to as many people as possible. And we had originally, as Kathy said, planned primarily to get the word out about the project through these physical events. But obviously, COVID shut all of that down. But thankfully, we were able to have a little bit of a think about how we wanted to share the project and who we wanted to reach. And during COVID, we started this series of Bats in Churches Live sessions, obviously, which this is a part of. And this is some of this year's sessions. But we've really been able with this to do some events we would never have thought of doing at the start of the project. We had a wonderful art session, Draw Along a Bat, with Maisie Ingliston, which I really enjoyed. Some incredible speakers who we may not have been able to get out to churches in person, people like Dermot McCulloch, the wonderful lecture that Rachel Morley from Friends of Friendless Churches gave about the magic and the history and the real intangible quality that you get in churches. And that's really one of my favourites. I highly recommend that. And that's an event we would not have been able to do physically with that number of speakers in one place. And we were also able to really respond to issues that came up during the course of the project. Obviously, with COVID, there was a lot of concern about bats and disease, whether we could catch anything from bats, and conversely, whether bats could catch disease from us. And if you're interested in that, there's a really fantastic webinar there on bats and disease that was done as part of the Bats in Churches Live project. And this has actually been one of the sort of most constructive outreach projects we've done. So it just shows you sometimes the things you think will be a major problem actually turned out to be one of the biggest opportunities for the project to reach an awful lot of people who, for reasons of accessibility, distance, location, wouldn't have been able to come to some of our physical events. These are all available to watch online on our website, and I highly recommend them if you've got a spare couple of hours and want to find out a little bit more. We've also had quite a high remit for training and giving people guidance a little bit about bats in churches. We work with a lot of very, very experienced, highly skilled, highly trained people, but they're often quite specialised. And one thing we did find was we had a lot of people with a huge amount of knowledge about bats who maybe didn't know a lot about churches. We had a lot of people with a huge amount of knowledge about working with churches who maybe didn't understand that much about the life cycle of bats. So as well as doing training like this, training people how to survey a church for bats and a little bit more about bats, we've also been doing some working with churches workshops, myself and Rose particularly, showing bat workers a little bit about how to work with churches. And that's everything from who you would talk to in the church community, to what a faculty is or what permissions are, to some of the more kind of specialist architectural terms you might want to use while you're describing a church or saying where bats are roosting in a church, rather than sort of that bit over there, you can say they're behind the chancel arch or behind a purlin and have people know what you mean. And that's been really, really important, that ability to bring different groups of people with different skills together and train them in something perhaps they didn't know about beforehand. Really major part of our work has been helping churches with cleaning. It's often one of the biggest issues for churches with bats is how to keep up with the cleaning and how to clean various items in the church without being damaged. And Antia, our heritage advisor, who you can see cleaning some brass in the photo on the left there, has done a wide range of these workshops right across England, giving people really practical advice, not talking about, conservation or restoration or anything, but simply how they can clean on a regular weekly basis in the church that's going to get rid of the bat mess, but equally not damage the items they're looking after. And again, while we weren't able to go out and do training in person, we did quite a little bit of online training, which wasn't on our initial plan, but that was for churches, church communities on how to write interpretation, how to run events, how to work with volunteers. And so, yeah, it might not seem like that's a direct output of something about bats in churches, But supporting church communities to work with volunteers, for example, is something that can be really, really useful for them, especially if they're struggling and they want more people to help with cleaning or to help with events and help with activities. So yeah, a real way to be able to kind of grab the opportunities and the needs when you see them and be a little bit flexible. And of course, there's no point us doing all of this if it's not there for people to use. So we have a huge amount of this out on our website now. You can download both guidelines and a video of the church cleaning workshops. We've also got 2 booklets on there. This first one, encouraging churches to record the bats in their church, learn a little bit more about their bats. Again, this can really help them if they're looking at carrying out works, planning mitigation, or just want to know a little bit more about their bats in order to engage with the local community. And this is really, really focused on things that are simple, in a lot of cases free, don't need a lot of fancy equipment or complicated setups or anything, just really, really simple ways that churches can start recording their bats. And that could, in the long term, save them quite a bit of money when it comes to needing major surveys for works or activities they want to do in the future. And obviously, a lot of our work has been to do with capital works and mitigation. So again, a really simple advice leaflet for churches about what mitigation options there might be, what else they can try. And again, this ability to reach out and see if they can get the local community to help. Obviously, both Rose and Kathy have mentioned, we have a very large pack of activities for young people. This is one of the little church spotter guides that you can do either with your school or with a uniform group, and there's a certain number of activities you can complete, and then when you've done that you can send it off and get your little cloth badge that Rose had a picture of. And again, this is all available on the Bats in Churches website and will be available after the project has officially finished. You'll still be able to go and access all of these resources and all of these videos. Couple of big things that again weren't in our plans at the beginning of the year. We worked with a wonderful lady called Eileen Stearns, who actually found out about the project by helping volunteer on some of the National Citizen Science surveys. And she's an artist, a digital artist, and multimedia artist, and her husband Phil is a sound recordist as well. And after a little bit of discussion between them and Rose particularly, we came up with the idea of commissioning her to produce a travelling artwork celebrating bats in churches, but giving the churches something that would bring people in and attract people to come and visit their church. It's quite a complicated thing to commission. We needed something that could be transported nationwide. We needed something that would be able to go in any church with any layout, with any kind of floor space, which was quite a big ask. We also wanted it kind of really multimedia, something that wasn't just static and was going to be something really interesting to visit in the church. So Eileen worked with one of our project churches at Compton Martin, taking photos, talking to the community, getting some poems and lines of their feedback about how they felt about bats in churches. Some local children wrote a poem, which is part of the artwork. And all of these photos and quotes were combined with some Bible quotes, some other poetry lyrics, and put together to make these beautiful semi-transparent layered panels that go up on display in the churches. And this gives you an idea of how you can fit them really, really easily into different layouts for different churches, which was really, really important at Wintringham and Walpole. And I particularly like that photo on the left because it's quite interesting to look at that. I know which bits of that image are on the panel and which bits of that image are actually the architecture of the church that you can see through the panel. But on first look, it's really, really hard. And seeing the artwork in different churches brought such a different aspect to it everywhere it was. And this is where it toured throughout the year. As you can see, we managed to get it to most areas where we've got project churches. And everywhere really enjoyed having it. And we've had some lovely feedback from the churches and the visitors as well. And one church in particular, Wintringham, which is the northernmost little bat on that map, has enjoyed having the same artwork so much that it is now actually going to offer it a permanent home. And so the artwork will be based up there in the Churches Conservation Trust at Wintringham, and you'll be able to visit it whenever you want. And finally, you've got a little sneak peek of this in Rose's school session, The Little Church Bat. Again, a children's book was not in our original output, but it was something that came up through a range of different chats. And we thought, we've got a really nice story here. It's a story about wildlife, and it's a story about people, and it's really, really engaging. And so we started writing this children's book. We based it on the true story of the bats of Braunston in Rutland. And it's a picture of Mo, the soprano pipistrelle, crawling into the roof space at Braunston. Again, a little bit about the church warden. We do have the church warden at Braunston, Sue, who is now called Bob on a regular basis by members of the community. And it was really challenging, but really interesting to put such a complicated project that we're working on into a really simple format that would engage with children. We were lucky enough to have a phenomenal illustrator in Chris Shields, and this shows you just how some of his artwork develops from the original pencil sketch through to the painting and to how it looks on a finished page of the book. And he's got such a wonderful style with all of this detail, and I particularly like the little stoat with his little black tail and his little red paws in the corner there. But yeah, phenomenal illustrations that just really brought the book to life, and really based on the layout of the church at Braunston as well. We spent more time than any of us had ever planned thinking about fonts, and trying to decide what to call it was almost as hard as writing it. But we are really, really pleased with the finished project. You can see there, that's Braunston Church from the air, and Mo as well. And this book is still available. You'll find some copies of it in our project churches. We've taken it out and about and sold it at events. Braunston in Rutland will have a stock that it can sell for its own fundraising. You might find it in some cathedral gift shops. This is Bath Abbey, I think, where it's been out and about. And it is still for sale online as well. And all the proceeds from that post-project will go to the Churches Conservation Trust if you're interested in a Christmas present, a little early Christmas present, and get stocked up. So I hope that's been interesting. It's given you a little bit of an idea of how we've managed to promote the project beyond the wider engagement of just our initial project churches, and how we've gotten it out to the general public and to people like yourself who are here listening to us today. I'll hand back to Kathy.
Thank you so much, Diana. That was lovely. I can personally speak for The Little Church Bat being an absolute favourite with children. Both of my children absolutely adore it. It's now in both of their school libraries. It's with their friends in their friends' school libraries, and just it's just a fantastic achievement of explaining, like Diana says, quite a complex subject very simply and clearly. And obviously, who wouldn't love Mo? In fact, my younger daughter has already requested from Rose and Diana that we have The Little Church Bat too. No news on delivery date of that yet, but you never know. So
never know.
So that's really been a whistle-stop tour of the engagement we've worked on over the last 5 years of the Bats in Churches project. It's a real testimony to honour Rose and Diana's hard work, because obviously they've balanced all this with also taking care of the needs of over 100 ancient churches with bats, and helping come up with individual and bespoke solutions for each and every one of those churches. So I hope you've enjoyed today and found it interesting. As everybody has said repeatedly, all the resources and information from everything in this presentation are available on our website, batsinchurches.org.uk. There you can order your copies of The Little Church Bat. You can complete the Bats in Churches Challenge badge and order your little cloth badge. There's information about schools, workshops, organising bat walks. There's training videos. There's, as Diana's mentioned, the cleaning workshops and videos. And there's downloadable cleaning guidelines for churches that will help them care for their specialist materials. I very much enjoyed the photograph of Antia cleaning the brass, because as we all know, her #1 motto is say no to brasso. So if you want to find out more about that, I recommend downloading the cleaning guidelines. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us today. Please do keep kept up to date with the Bats in Churches project at our website, batsinchurches.org.uk. And thank you also to our 5 partners and to the National Lottery Heritage Fund for making the project possible. Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon.